This presentation will show you how to use the stretch command. The stretch command is a very valuable command. It's one of the top modify commands. It's similar to the move command, but yet it's a stretch command where part of the object will stay fixed while another part of it will move. So let's try the stretch command, picking it from the modify toolbar. And when selecting stretch, the first thing you have to do is select the objects just like you do in a lot of other modify commands. There's one thing special about the stretch command is that you have to select the objects using the crossing method. It will not work properly using any other method of object selection. Whether it's the pick box or window or fence, it has to be the crossing. I like to select an area out in the middle of the screen away from the object, typically to the right hand side, because if I pick on the right hand side and then slide over the top of it, I'm going to include the object that I want to select using the crossing method. Remember implied windowing? Pick right, drag left gives you a crossing option. So I select my objects. When I'm done selecting objects, hit enter. Now select a base point. I pick a base point anywhere on my screen. I'm going to hit F8 for ortho so it slides in a horizontal direction, and I just push in the direction I want to go. I could type in 1, enter. It has stretched my object 1 unit to the left. To do that again, I'll go stretch, pick an area out in space, drag over the top of the object, include the area that I want to stretch or drag over while I leave the other endpoints fixed. Hit enter, drag in the direction you want to go, type 1 again. Now I've stretched that down. So if you don't like what you see, you want to undo a stretch, you just simply undo. So that's how the stretch command works. Now if it doesn't work exactly the way you want it to, maybe you pick stretch, and if you were to use window, I'll just show you what would happen. I'll select over the top of it, and I'll hit enter, and instead of stretching, I'll go 0.25 down. Instead of stretching, it just moved the object. Because I did not have these other items selected using the crossing method, I used window instead, so the lines were unaffected by it, and the triangular portion was moved down, but the other lines didn't stretch with it because they were not selected with the crossing object selection method. So that's some quick things on the stretch command. I like to use it in conjunction with ortho because typically when you're stretching something, 99% of the time you will stretch either horizontally or vertically. It's not too often you're going to stretch things at an angle, you know, to give it a skew or whatever. So again, that stretch, select the objects, include any endpoints that you want to change or relocate, and don't include any endpoints that you want to stay fixed. So now when I stretch this, and if I stretch down 0.5 units, notice how things change a little bit. I started with an object on my screen that was basically similar to like a hip roof plan, looking straight down on it, and just showed how to modify it. I'm going to undo, undo, and undo, and kind of get back to the original state. Please let me know if you have any questions regarding the stretch command. The biggest thing that you should remember is use crossing object selection method. Hit enter when you're done selecting objects. Pick your base point. Make sure ortho's on, and pick a displacement point. And the base points could be either directly on the object or they could be out in space. I prefer just picking a base point out in space and then using direct distance entry and drag your mouse in the direction that you want to go or your crosshairs and type in your direct distance entry distance and hit enter, and the object would stretch. If you have any questions, make sure to contact me. Otherwise, this will wrap up the presentation for the stretch command.